Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
And I'm your host, Noel John Toohey.
And this is MDK Presents Ben Galley. Ben, tell the folks who you are and what you do.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Ben Galley. I'm a British author who lives in the west coast of Canada these days. I'm a writer of dark and epic fantasy. I've got a couple of series out, 15 books over the last 10 years. Emaneska series, Scouts and Chronicles, Chasing Graves trilogy as well. I'm forgetting all them now.
Wait a minute. 15 books over did you say 15 books over the last 10 years? I thought it was 16 books. Oh, God, this all feels so anticlimactic.
I'll get my coat. Yeah. I'm losing count. But yeah, just writing is my passion, dark fantasy and epic fantasy, and making readers kind of want to throw my book across the room or shout at me on Twitter is always fun. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, the best job in the world.
Okay, let me ask you this actually. This would be, if I wanted to dip into Ben Galley, what do you think is a good starting point? Is it if I just had one book? And I know you've, because of course you've got the list is as long as your arm. Where's a good starting point? If you just, what's the best way to get into the little head of yours?
I would say Chasing Graves trilogy, because it's a complete series, even though the Emaneska series and the other ones are a complete series as well. I'm very, very proud of what I've done with Chasing Graves. It was kind of like a screw it, I'm just going to see where this book goes, and it's kind of bonkers in some parts, and like I try and break rules here and there, and I'm mixing up genres, but yeah, I think it's something that is quite complete as a story. And if you were to get into Emaneska, there's quite a few short stories, there's quite like another sequel series as well, Scouts and Chronicles, so there's a lot to dig into there.
That's awesome.
So yeah, if there's too much, yeah, I'd say start with the trilogy of Chasing Graves.
Okay, excellent.
And when you're like creating a story, Ben, do you do deep outlines or do you do broad outlines, or do you kind of do what they say pants, or you just write as you go?
I've always been a planner. Yeah, so I will write a big old plan. Spreadsheets on it. Yeah, character lists, descriptions, histories, rules, all sorts of different things. I'll even like draw the world and sketch it out. Not like a full map, but just a really rough sketch. I've got one here that's literally just like a squiggle of a tree. But it works.
It's for scope though, isn't it? I suppose.
Exactly.
If you can get it out of your head and onto paper, and it's not just words, if you can do that with because I couldn't draw your attention, let alone anything.
Yes.
But sometimes if somebody, you just see the kind of go, well, it would be this kingdom is massive and it's trying to encroach on this one's smaller, it's coastal, it's blah blah blah, and when it's out there, I guess it's easier to bring it to life. And like I'm the only one of the three of us that isn't an author, but at the same time, even I can imagine that it's best to get all your ducks in a row and try and make the world as tangible as you can before you really jump in and try and do the actual work of writing.
Yeah, I don't think I count until my book is out anyway, but no, so it's all good.
Oh man, yeah, this one I've got like the squiggle of a tree. It's so weird because I have to it's kind of like a vertical map, which I've never done before. This new world is I'm comparing it to like, or describing it as Avatar meets Venom, so it's going to be kind of like I was going to ask
I remember the last time we spoke, and I was yes, sir.
Yeah, because I think I was writing at that point. So it's all finished and it's going through editing stages currently, and can't wait for it to come out. Seen the cover, can't share it just yet, so I can't wait to see what people think of it. But yeah, it's the first time I've kind of worked in a vertical world, aside from like big towers and stuff. There's always kind of some massive structure I like to put in my books, but yeah, this is a tree called Chaugara, and it's a giant mile-high kind of redwood / a tree that we have out in BC, called I've completely forgotten the name, arbutus tree, and yeah, so that is kind of like a weird, just odd tree that only grows around here. And yeah, it's been pretty hard to kind of put that world together because it's massive in both the city itself, because there's a city and the branches, as well as the surrounding kind of forest world around it. So yeah, that's been really strange. But the plan for that is probably the biggest and deepest one I've done yet, because the world is just completely secondary. So yeah.
Do you think you're I don't know, I mean, this is like someone who hasn't a clue, but do you think as you kind of go along from, like, let's just say that had 10 years, are you improving as a writer, or are you just evolving? As in, are you just your scope or your boldness or your balls, whatever you want to put it down to, where you're just kind of going, because again, you're kind of going like, okay, let's write the story and it's like a murder mystery and it's like fun. Now I want Avatar, but no, more Venom and ancient gods. You know what I mean? Is it just you just find yourself getting a little bit more fuck it, caution to the wind, or are you just improving?
It's kind of a weird thing because I mean, I hope I'm improving. I hope that, you know, my
well, of course, I
ideas,
suppose that's
yeah.
in anything any of us do. Of course, that's the hope.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but in terms of evolving, I really like that kind of thinking and the difference between them, because yeah, I would say what I'm doing is trying to kind of work on my strengths, I say, and I've always been kind of secondary world. I always like my world building, sometimes to a fault, because there's, you know, like I said, a giant plan document, a lot of research and a lot of kind of remembering different things and stuff all the way through it. But with the kind of evolution, I do try and deepen that, try to kind of explore that a bit more. So yeah, I've tried to I think the worlds have just gone crazier and crazier, and so yeah, there is an element of fuck it to that. And yeah, sometimes with the kind of the way I treat characters, or characters sometimes demand to be treated, depending on, you know, which character they are. Some just come to life and tell me what to do, which is nice. But yeah, with that, it's kind of like I am trying to push boundaries there with, you know, emotions, and I think I'm evolving in the way that I'm learning how to mess around with those emotions without, you know, just not in a torturous way sometimes, but in, you know, an entertainment
Are you
way.
second guessing yourself a bit less?
Well, this is the other bit I was going to get to.
Vinny talks to me a bit about his writings and stuff, and sometimes I've noticed, even just talking to him, he has more, I'm just going to literally take it all out. Like Vinny would go back and do a rewrite, and it's taken him weeks. It didn't work. He tried something, and at the end he went, you know what, I tried. And then sometimes it's crap, but you need to get that balls, I think, comes with experience or with time.
A little bit. Yeah. I think that's kind of the other edge of it, though, with, you know, I think I am evolving and I'm just kind of pushing myself a bit further. But then I kind of do second guess myself because I'm stepping further. And also, I think it was Zamo Akhtar on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. He put it in such a great way where it's probably months ago now. It's probably like in 2019 compared to my memory. But yeah, he put this tweet out, and it was about the idea of when you're improving, you don't necessarily it's going to be paraphrased completely, but it was about kind of the way of, you know, your critical element grows with your skill level. So maybe you don't notice that you're improving, or you don't notice you're evolving, and sort of not the pressure of it, but essentially, you know, the process can be slowed down or a bit more kind of, I don't know, doubt filled. So yeah, with Demon's Reign, it was really difficult to write. It took me ages compared to the normal book. And again, that wasn't just complexity, that was just my own I don't know, level of where I wanted to get it, essentially. Yeah, I wouldn't say high standards, but somewhere along that.
Yeah, because you could say, you're going to put your name on it, you're going to feed it to the world. Yeah.
And David Estey's name as well, because it's going to be co-written. And yeah, obviously he's been helping.
Fuck that guy.
And...
Jesus Christ. We could have got him on, Noel.
I love Vinny. You're editing.
I got this. So David Estey's a great guy. Is what Noel was
great
saying.
Guy. All I was saying.
No, but like one thing I love about world building is that you get this kind of like this bones. You go, oh, this, and this, your main beats. They're the things you kind of come up with first. And then you're like, how do I connect these together? And then all of a sudden, these little scenes start growing. And then you're like, who do I fill these scenes with? And then all these characters start growing. And then like all of a sudden, they have this kind of knock-on effect. Who should this character interact with? Why are they interacting with them? And then you're like, you create this kind of backstory for all these characters. And you're like, oh, maybe I can bring him onto the next scene and I can flesh him out. And then 2 or 3 chapters later, you have a character that's actually kind of pivotal to your story, and like only 2 or 3 days before he didn't exist or something. And like, that's the best.
Yeah, the amount of characters that have got like a spin-off, or kind of, you know, got their own chapter that I never thought they would have. I'm like, what the hell? And it's, these are the ones that just like come through and just like, no, I see you've got a plan here. What I'm going to do is just kind of move these things aside. You're just going to have to use me. There's multiple of those in Chasing Graves where I thought, oh, you're actually the secret key to this entire thing. It's like Neville Longbottom, like at the end, you know, picking up the sword of let's say Gandalf there, but he picks up the sword of Gryffindor. Yeah,
it reminds me, it was a tweet that Stephen King put out the other day. He goes, I just read Cujo. It's a really good book considering it was written by a sentient pile of cocaine.
Amazing.
You know, but it's and this leads me to a question. I'm going to throw it to both of you because you're both writers. Vinny will stop shitting on himself for a second, and that is that. Have you ever just written something like shorthand down when you're a little bit out of it, like you're drunk, you're stoned? I don't know what you get up to, and you're kind of going like, you know what, the key, the tree key, blah blah, and you kind of go, that's just genius. Then you look at the next day and go, what?
I think I did that the other day. I'll just like find little notes on my phone, because I mean I keep just trying to find one, but I don't want to keep just sit here scrolling. But I remember just being like, what? And it was, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just tired. I think I wake up in the middle of the night and then forget that I've woken up and I'll write something from a dream. So my phone's always just there, and I just have this like long old document of notes and ideas and just random stuff that will come to me. And like the only one I can find, I was just like, I don't know, story idea of someone who's annoyingly happy, basically.
Yeah.
Or character idea, sorry, I should say. And so yeah, I'll just order them up and I'll keep this big notes document. I have this little book as well that kind of travels most places with me, you know, just in case my phone dies, which it is always doing. And yeah, it's kind of something that I do wake up sometimes, yeah, maybe after a heavy night, or I don't know, yeah, any other kind of night, and just think, what the hell? What is this? Where I've suddenly been so inspired by something, clearly completely forgotten it, and woken up and been like, what the hell is the Knights of Twilight? Like, that was one
there you go. Yeah, that's what I'm
idea.
exactly what I'm talking. You're like, this is just going to bring back this wonderful thing I've just thought of. I'll just short, because I'm not a writer, but I'm a musician, and I wrote something in my head, like dreaming, and I woke up and I was like, I was too tired, so I picked up my bass and I figured out the root notes and the key, and I was like, boo, 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 and I'll remember all that filler, that beautiful filler. I'll work that out tomorrow. And then it was the next day going, boo, 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 boo. That's not music. It's not anything.
Yeah, I used to do the same thing with voice notes.
Yeah, I know. That's what I need to do. What about you, Vin?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple of, like, about a year ago, I was working out the novel that I just finished on Sunday, and I just Soundman. I just wrote the relic is the key, and I was like, cool. What the fuck? What?
This is genius.
I was like,
game changer.
Yeah, and I was like, and I wrote the note, and I hadn't written for 2 days. So when I was going back through my notes, I was like, okay, what have I been writing down on my phone? And I was like, the relic is the key, and I'm like, what? Oh, fuck, what does that even mean? I was like, shit. So for about half an hour, I was sitting here listening to music, trying to figure out what I was talking about. But yeah, most of the times, most of my notes happen right before I fall asleep. Like, I came up for the title of River of Bones right before I dozed off. I was dozing off one time, and I was like, the title popped into my head, and I was like, ooh, what's that story about? And that's how I started writing novels. So, like, it's just the craziest little things like that right before you fall asleep, or right when you're chilling out, or you're just listening to music, when you can just drop your brain to a different level of noise or busyness, and then the ideas kind of roll in. And then sometimes you forget them. Sometimes they're your best ideas. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, as I said, like River of Bones, if I hadn't been dozing off that night, maybe I never would have started writing novels.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's so weird.
Yeah.
I suppose everything has to start as something quite small, doesn't it? You know, like, it's not like an epic. An epic is built, but it has to start as something quite small, I'd imagine, you know? And even if it's something ambitious, like it's small, but it's still based in the future, or it's based in an alternate universe, or it's based like in demigods or something quite high concept, but it still has to be born for something small. You still have to build it from a seed, I assume, because otherwise I think you're just running before you can walk, to use kind of maybe a tired cliche.
Yes, but the story will tell you whether or not it has more legs. The story will tell you how long it needs to be, where it has to go. Like, that's because, like, that's why Noel, when I have early drafts, I'll send something to Noel. I go, do you think that can be fleshed out anywhere? Because sometimes you'll run out of ideas, but that's why now when I finish drafts, I'll leave it for 3 months, and I'll go back and you'll have 4 or 5 more ideas, and you'll add 2 new chapters, maybe 3 new chapters, and then you leave it alone for a while, and then you go back and you go, oh, I've got 2. Maybe that chapter doesn't need to be there. I can start earlier. And then you can change the pace of the story and stuff like that. But that's the same, the story and the characters, they will tell you where they're going to go, where the story is going to go, how long it needs to be. And like, sometimes that changes, but very rarely. I think the story itself kind of has a life to it, and it will tell you how long that life is as you're getting into it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's the stories, I think, that lie to you, and they're like, yeah, we'll be 100,000 words. And then suddenly you're at 200,000 words and thinking,
oh man, I'm at the opposite. I wrote this first person. I've never written first person. I have it. It's only done like 2. I've done 2 drafts. It's called The Lonely Lighthouse. And it's just like very singular, very insular, kind of one guy kind of on his own, left to his devices kind of thing. And I was like, I'll do this short, 150 pages easy. And I'm writing, I'm like, shit, he's got nobody to interact with. Like,
but the thing is, I've read it, and the thing I loved about it is this kind of like detached feeling that it has. And if he started like introduce, and then a kraken rises from the ocean, it would completely destroy the story.
Exactly.
Obviously, you can't be like, and then he loved her very, 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 very much. You know, like, you can't do that. So I do think that sometimes you need if something turns into a novella or something, I think you'd need to be honest to the story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew that was going to be a short story when I started, because like our novella, it's like 40,000 or just over 20,000 words.
Is that what it is? Is
something
that what
like that? Yeah. And I knew it was because of the content. That's what I'm saying. The story will tell you how long it is, but I just thought it was going to be a little bit longer, and then maybe it will be in further drafts. It's just that I never wrote one person interacting with his thoughts. It's all very introspective, and like whether or not he's dealing with whether or not this place is haunted, or if he's haunted by his guilt of something that he's hiding in his past. That's pretty much what the premise is, you know. So you have to flesh it out from there, you know what I mean? And those kind of stories are influenced by movies I watch. But like Ben, like what kind of movies did you watch or show or
good question
literature did you consumed as a younger dude that got you? Because you told us once upon a time you wrote your first story like at 12 or something. And like, what is the stuff you consumed that made you want to write dark fantasy and all these kind of things?
Right. So I mean, like the first book that I wrote was, I think it was like 130,000. What? Yeah, around definitely over 100,000. I haven't looked at it in ages.
You should publish that shit.
Nope.
That answered any follow-up question I could have had.
Gary spelled incorrectly and everything.
Man, it would take so much editing. It was written by, what would you call that? Middle grade, I think, in the US, isn't it? That's that age group. So it was written by a middle grade person, a kid, me, for sort of maybe middle grade and younger, and it is, I don't think even middle grade people would read it now. It was honestly like, it's your first book, also written by a child who, you know, would sit inside on sunny days typing away at an old PC just because it was just bizarre, but I loved it. And it was a massive rip-off of Redwall. So yeah, Redwall by Brian Jacks or Jakes. I've never
even noticed you were ripping it off when you were doing
I knew exactly what I was doing. Yeah,
nearly almost litigious. Like fan fiction kind of like
almost got myself into a litigious situation from the outset. But no, it was like a completely separate thing from Redwall, but it was anthropomorphized animals instead of, you know, beasts, moles and otters and rabbits and hares and all sorts of cool stuff from, you know, the Redwall world. It was the sort of monkey troops in central and southern India.
Nice.
And so I was just watching, I was like reading a lot of Redwall and watching a lot of David Attenborough. So I used to absorb a lot of documentaries when I was a kid. I was a really boring kid.
That's a homage. That's not plagiarism.
True. Sir David Attenborough.
It's that thing where, you know, be nice to the nerds, you'll be working for one someday. You know, exactly. It's that thing where if it was in you at that age, then it was in you, and it would have been kind of not untrue to yourself not to do with anything else.
Exactly. And I did kind of go into music for a bit. I was going to be a meteorologist or a scientist for a small period of time, so I went down that route, and I was like and then went to study music. And then even when I was doing that and working in bars and hospitality, I was just like, no, I've got this book idea just burning a hole in my head. And so that was it. I mean, a lot of it was Redwall and Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, C.S. Lewis, and then my parents kind of got me into a lot of mythology, like not Grimm's fairy tales, but that also. But the Iliad and the Odyssey, a lot of the, you know, Norse fairy tales as well, Germanic fairy tales, Norse mythology, the whole shebang, and a lot of just, you know, Middle Eastern mythology and stories as well. And I just loved it. Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's in research the most fun part, though, almost.
Yeah, it's research without even knowing I was researching. You know what I mean? So
but you get to switch off a little bit and just learn. I assume at that stage, you know, you're just learning, and you're not. There's no stress. There's no timeline at this point. You're just learning, and it's something you're interested in. Vinny's been learning a lot about feudal Japan and stuff like that, and he'd just be talking to me, and he just randomly break up a conversation like, back then, and it was like, clearly I didn't know that.
Like I took 10 days off at the start of January, and from writing, because I was like, I completed a full draft, and I was like, I'm just going to take 10 days off, wind down.
You need to do that,
plan for the next book, you know. And so I just literally watched about 30 hours of feudal Japanese documentaries, just samurai documentaries, man. There's a Netflix series, if anyone wants to check it out, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But like research, I think it's the funnest thing. Like, because like I think it's like a common joke between writers or anyone that does any research is like, if you look at the history, like, you know what I mean? It's like, how did this member? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, my search history would worry anyone sitting in like a CIA or bunker or FBI or whatever, NSA bunker. It's like, what's he Googling now? I'm like, how easily can you decapitate a head?
Best way to dissolve a body using only household. I'm an author of murder.
Oh man, yeah, I think I was doing this the other day. I don't know if I can find out my history, but it was definitely something on those lines, because I was researching sort of like shipwrecks and drowning and things like that, because I was writing sort of like a little nautical short story at the moment. But yeah, doing the research for that was the best fun, because I wanted to be about this creature. The short story is set in the Emanesque world, and it's called the Weaver and the Worm, worm with a Y, RM,
like wormwood.
and and so it's kind of it's kind of nautical. It's a few ships in it, but there's also animals, and I was just trying to find the best mythological creature that I haven't featured in my books yet, and love just spending an hour or two just scrolling through Wikipedia and Encyclopedia Britannica, which I use quite a lot as well, and just mopping up all the information and be like, that one.
Are you good at when you do all that? Because like do you plan out, are you good at planning out your day and just sticking to it in a very, very, very regimented way? Or like, like I'm going to write between now and now, or I'm going to get X amount of words out. And even if I have to go back, even if I say, no, that last 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 were garbage, that's whatever. But but you are going to put something to paper. Are you good at that? Or I don't know. I suppose open question is that a strength of yours, would you say, or would you say that it's...
Yeah, I would say it's kind of difficult at the moment, because there's since running the Kickstarter, everything's been like very busy. So I'm working a lot of different little kind of projects in between the writing, and I've also been editing Demon's Reign and doing the second and third, maybe fourth draft of it, feels like now. And so it's kind of not messed around with my structure necessarily, but it's been a lot of differing structures over different days. But yes, in short, I do like to make sure that I have a block wherever it has. That block's just been moving all around the place at the moment.
Well, Vinnie plans his blinks.
I like to do that. I like to try. I like from Ben. Like I spoke about to Don Shanahan a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke about when I started following you on Facebook, and I started working with him in 25YL, and we wrote articles together, that I seen your workloads, and you were putting out like 2,000, 4,000 words every day, and I'm like, okay, Vinny, that's what you need to do.
Jokes aside, you are a big influence for him. Yeah, he was saying that's the level I want to be operating at. Like.
Yeah, when I seen your workload, I was like, okay, that's what we need to do. And I go, okay, we start at 1,000's our aim. Now I do about 2,000, 1,500, between 1,000's low end, but so about 2,000 words every day. And that's how I was able to redraft a book in December. Like I just did like 8 or 9 hours every day, redrafting, rewriting yourself. And that's just from looking at what you do. Like, it's like you're constantly pumping out books, or 4,000 words. Like one time you're like, I did 70,000 words in April. I'm like, Ben, you son of a bitch, I just did 20,000. I was like, you son of a bitch, Ben.
He said this to me, like you legitimately pissed him off. It was hilarious.
I was like, you son of a bitch, Ben.
But I think
that's honored and sorry at the same time.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. If like Messi didn't have Ronaldo, and if Ronaldo didn't have Messi, you know what I mean? Like just put it. You could put it into anything. Where somebody's saying like, well, this guy, if LeBron hadn't come after Michael Jordan, anybody who wants to achieve excellence has to look at somebody who is going to say, well, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to push yourself to the edge, because that's what I'm going to do. And that person is pushing against you, pushing against them, pushing against you. And that's how greatness is born. I think in any endeavor, science, science down to the academics, down to entertainment. And that's the industry that you guys are in. But I do think pushing the envelope, because I think Billy has a lot of personal drive. Yeah, and never take it away from him, even jokingly. But at the same time, I think when he looks out and kind of goes, I could be doing more. Ben fucking Galley is your name when you're not around. Like.
I'll take it. It's something that I'm honestly, I'm so honored, like that I can, it does sort of push people further, and it helps. And it's something that I do, try to encourage, because it does mean that you obviously are putting out the words, and you're putting out books a bit faster, which is a secret, or one of the secrets. I wouldn't say it's not a secret. One of the factors behind success in this industry. But again, it's also a double-edged sword, where that could be more phrase has like sometimes just tortured me. That's like sometimes where I can't take a day off, because like even today I'm just want to focus on some writing. I'm like, yeah, but I could work through like this and do that while I'm trying to do this, like a multitask, or try and do, I don't know, work until midnight. And it can get you sometimes, but otherwise it's a fantastic driver as well. It's a very small like double edge to it, but yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things that when we're independent artists or independent, entrepreneurs, your business and your life do get intertwined to a certain point where it can be difficult to switch off. And you think, oh, why don't I just keep going?
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
why, there's a like one day where I was like, I want to see how many words I can do, but it took me literally 12 hours straight, and well, pretty much straight, and then I'd slept for like a day and a half, 2 days. So, sometimes that sort of pace, or like aiming for a high pace, it's unachievable every day. But then I was chatting to Andy Peliquin the other day. He can do like 2,000 an hour and does like 4 to 6 hours a day, and I'm just like, just the mechanical speed that he has, as well as
because
the ability to into a flow.
Type, I could type fairly fast, not that fast, but like fast. But like I could type like just like, oh, dear Ben, thanks for being on the show, and it was nice to see you. I couldn't imagine and story tell. That's a different.
His outlines must be so detailed that the story's already there by the time he goes to the page. You ever get like that with an outline where you work your outline so detailed, and you're just like, oh yeah, thank you. And you're just like, you're like you're commentating on it, that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, it's just scary. Because there's always someone, and like even Brandon Sanderson would probably be able to churn out a book a weekend if he wanted. He does. That man's insane. He's the one that I sort of put in esteem, and just think like, well, there's quite a few people. David Estes being one, Andy Peliquin, Phil Tucker, all sorts of authors out there. It's to name a few. But yeah, Brandon Sanderson's one of the ones at the top. I'm just like, dear Lord, how the fuck are you doing this?
Do you think they review as they go, or do you think it's like freeform? Do you do a lot of freeform, or do you review as you go? I like to review as I go.
I don't necessarily. Yeah, so if I'm typing, I'll just type, and it seems to. I just keep moving through the actual words and through the pace to kind of hit a certain goal within a certain time frame. So yeah, my speed's about 1,000, 1,500 to, I would say, an hour. Some amazing, sometimes like 500 an hour if like I am working out a bit more of like a gap in my plan. But yeah, the plan does help me to get into flow state and just essentially churn it out, just during a given period. And then I will sometimes tinker with it when I'm starting out the next day. I might spend 5 to 15 minutes just being like, all right, yeah, cool. If I've had a couple of drinks, I might spend slightly more being like, what the fuck is this?
Trying to remember it.
Yeah, that's sort of like,
like previously on Demon's Reign.
Can I ask
exactly?
Can I flip the script a little bit? Do you think it's important as well? And again, I only use Vinny because he's the only barometer that I've ever had.
I'm not a good one.
Not a good one. No, but at the same time, he's like, oh, I wrote like for 6 hours today. I wrote for 7. We did a podcast just the other day, and he's like, man, I've been in this chair since 11 o'clock this morning. I can't wait to get this shit over with. But anyway, but at the same time, he introduced me to a term called brain tired. And he just literally like for 2 to 3 days, he does nothing. As in, he doesn't even engage with the books. He doesn't engage the thought. He sits and does Xbox. He's the laziest guy in the world. But he's after for a month and a half, he hasn't done that. But he just reaches a point where he thinks the best thing you can do for the creative process is to stop.
Oh yeah,
to stop.
You're not wrong.
The obsessive approach, you are just actually shorting yourself out, or you're going to hurt your quality. Maybe do you think that's true of all creative types, or
100%?
Do you think some people can you manage yourself that you're like 365 but you're giving yourself your breaks? Because for me, I'd imagine there has to be a point where you just crash and you go, I need to just stop.
Yeah, I've burnt out before, where it's been a combination. Again, it's a lot of the time it's to do with, or a mixture of the creative and the business side of it. So there's just a huge amount to do, both writing and marketing. Sometimes, I remember a couple of years back, forget when, because the last couple of years have just been a weird black hole. Time
for us all. Time.
Corona years.
So sometime in the past, I was just working. So I don't think I really kind of like left my apartment for like 2 weeks, and I was finishing off a book at the time. And I think I was just like absolutely burnt out to the point of just sleeping for about 2 days. And it is a brain tired thing, but it's like it's your brain and your gut are very linked. And I think there's also your body is very linked to your brain, of course. And so I think you end up physically exhausted because of your mental exhaustion. And at that point, I couldn't string a sentence together, never mind actually write a book or a chapter. So I think rest is very important. It depends. Some people, again, it's a personal thing. Whatever your rest looks like, being actual normal sleep from Xbox is something I use, watching a film. or even just completely switching off, meditating, I don't know, going for a walk, activities, whatever you like to do, that sort of thing is important. I think everyone has their ability to, or kind of their appropriate windows of rest. I mentioned Brandon Sanderson's rest is writing somehow. So it's great when,
for Vinny,
it's great when you
sex with Lorraine, and for me it's sex with Lorraine.
Oh, man. Yeah,
no,
that's it.
I apologize for nothing.
If I was Will Smith, I'd be slapping you.
Like absolutely.
There we go.
By the way, the recording of this is just the day after the Oscars, and we did speak before we went live about the pimp slap heard around the world. That open hand. Oh man, open hand is so much worse than a punch. It's like it
was more like a sim slap though.
Yeah, like men throw hands. It's kind of like, no, get up there, and like he should have gone backhand.
The backhand would have been like the absolute kind of shade throwing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Sort of like, you're not worth a closed fist.
Yeah, you're not worth a closed fist. That's it. That's my new barometer for like, how was your book received? Will Smith slapped the masses. That's what I'm hoping for both you guys. That's what I want to hear. Will Smith slapped the masses. That's what I want for you.
Oh man,
tell me about this latest one. We have this the Centaur, the Venom meets the Avatar. You mentioned at the top of these kind of extremely high-rise trees, a mile plus up. How excited are you about it? How far into development is it? I know you mentioned it earlier. And what can we look forward to that you can give away? I'm not trying to.
Yeah, spoilers are plenty. No.
Yeah. How does it end?
Who dies?
Who dies? Yeah.
What percentage of the cast dies?
Yeah.
It's a dark. I would say it's not dark. It's less dark than Chasing Graves, but it's gritty. Okay, it's what authors are shit at describing their own books.
Is it a bit like what I understand it to be a bit like war based, or you know what I mean? Like it's not like an insular story. That it's the scope sounds large, I suppose is what I mean. So Absolutely. It's not just a small party of players. It sounds like the concept is quite big.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The concept is on the epic scale. So I would say it's a gritty epic fantasy from a first-person perspective, with a younger character, not quite YA character, but in terms of 18, 19, so like a new adult, sort of told from that perspective. But it's also progression fantasy, which is the real key behind this book. So I've kind of built in sort of progressional elements to it, rankings to the world as well as the power and the magic system. And so it's I wouldn't say it's definitely not punishingly intricate, but it's quite intricate from a point. But I try to present it in kind of like drip it in here and there. I never like to info dump if I can, or come up with things organically. So that is sort of a new kind of genre for me in a way, and there's a lot of research into that and how to actually construct a progression fantasy, and David's been absolutely invaluable in the co-writing process there. But it follows the story of a young chap called Taka, who is the kind of the lowest of the low. He's a worker. The entire world is based on birth order, and so a forest star world. Everyone's living in their own tree, which is called a bloodwood. And mile high, and so Shalgara is his home, and he's just a worker who cannot, for some reason, essentially land a job. So the only thing he's supposed to be good at, he's absolutely terrible at, and so he's been kicked from job to job, either because of his attitude or because of something his expired father, his dead father, did to a nobleman. So that kind of that family continued to punish Tako's family. And then that's kind of the world set up, and then someone basically decides to open the door to some demons, and so basically some demons explode into the scene, and they are kind of like inspired by the wildfires that Pacific Northwest deals with, and all over the world deal with every summer, and how they come on a regular basis, and the demons essentially return to the world after 1,000 years, and like wildfires start burning through the forest. They basically had their eyes set on Shalgara, and so Tako, through no fault of his own, winds up on the front line of the first battle, which does not go that well, for a lot of different people. And he winds up through an accident of magic with a demon in his mind. So this demon is essentially stuck in his head.
It does. Yeah. It's kind of playing in my head as well, because there's always like those scenes where yes, he like survives something that a lot of people wouldn't survive, like that's integration with a D or whatever. So it's the lowly person, but there is like good for him, and maybe he gets to fight back against the system or whatever. But at the same time, the cost. I love something that's based on the cost. And again, I'm saying fights back. I don't know, absolutely no idea what he does. But but at the same time, just I love something that's based on that doesn't ignore the cost while telling its own story. And it sounds like it's got tiers of class, and it sounds like you've literally put a world up in the trees, which is just fascinating. I would read.
Thank you.
That one. I really would.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's something that took like I said, a long time to write, and a lot of kind of planning and figuring out. And there was a big cast. I mean, even though it's first person, Taco is very much involved in the fight against the demons. So he's like, traveling here and there and doing all sorts of stuff, meeting some people. And so there's, the training sort of magic school element, not necessarily an actual school, but there's definitely a training in magic system. There is a lot of battles. So they have to defend the tree. Something that's not necessarily a spoiler, but no, it's not a spoiler. Just trying to think. Trees can move in this world as well. So
the blood trees,
the bloodwoods, they can
bloodwoods.
If they need,
I love
they
that,
need to.
by the way.
It's a book one of the Bloodwood saga, and so there's plenty more. There's one's bigger and older than
something. I wish I thought of. There's something very metal about it, like Bloodwood would be an amazing name for a band or something. But there you go. You got that shit locked down. Tell me, you co-authoring this? Am I correct, or is this? Yeah. So, what is? Well, I mean, I know what it is, but when you co-author something, like Vinny's run stuff by me, and I say, "Oh, that's cool, man. If you consider this," oh no, you say, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that," or "That's a good idea," but that's not co-authoring. It's his world and he's building, and it's completely different. But to sit and have to, if he had to run something by me, and I had to run something by him, I'd imagine that the dynamics. I can't even imagine what the dynamics are.
No, we kind of did that with that script we did, though.
We did it with the script. To be fair, that's right. But I remember writing the original draft, and you world built on it. Yeah, and ran stuff with me, and I remember just thought that was the two of us working to our strengths. But I think when two authors overlap, they might have a lot of the same strengths. You know what I mean? Like they might be bringing a lot of the same thing to the table. Because they're both world builder. You're a world builder. I'm not, and I relinquished that to you because you were so good at it. But when you were with somebody who has a very similar skill set, what's that like, and how do you make that work?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because it's completely up to the two authors as well. So one of the best examples recently, as well as hopefully going to be a good example of it. But Norelska Groans by Clayton Snyder and Michael R. Fletcher. They took a chapter each and a character each. So there are two viewpoints in the book. And so they are going through, one chapter roughly each in their own voices. So it gives that character a very authentic feel to it, like an authentic depth of character and an authentic voice.
Individualistic.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And so I think that's probably the usual way. I wouldn't say the usual way, but trying to think of how to describe it, but I think that's a very clever way of doing it, and I think it's something that I would lean towards in the future. But yeah, with this one, it was kind of on a sort of chapter by chapter level where I would be kind of planning it out, sending it to plan to David. Lots of feedback going back and forth, lots of ideas being shared, very collaborative process, and then kind of me putting the words down on paper with feeding back to him almost every other paragraph, sort of thing like that. So we're checking it and we're amending things as we're working on it. So yeah, that was kind of a slightly different way of doing it, and I think it was definitely fun as well. And then I know people who will write together, they all literally take line by line, which is just kind of interesting to a certain extent in terms of the line by line. But yeah, I think that is really interesting because it's that is very collaborative. It's not two characters kind of intertwining around a mutually agreed plan. And yeah, it's just a fun process as well. As jokingly talked about it with Sebastian Castell this weekend. But yeah, that could be fun as well, just writing a completely different thing. But yeah, might actually have to edit that out because I don't know if that was just pub talk.
No. So you're sleeping with each other. You two are sleeping with each other. God, could have shortened it.
Ben, you were talking a few minutes ago about battles. Like one thing I love doing is planning out battles. I get obsessed about it.
You get horny. You'll be like, I'm writing the battle today, and he's just like,
yeah. I usually like take about 3 or 4 weeks before you even put pen to paper, like digital pen to paper, if you will, But like when you're planning out something like a battle, like do you look at real world tactics? Do you look it's like I always say it's like kind of playing chess against yourself, and like do you look at like do the characters influence your battle plans, or do you look at real world influences and that's how you construct your battle plans?
I've done a lot of that in the past, whereby I've been looking at and used to play games like Total War all the time and watch the documentaries, and so it's a lot of like research that I've done in the past, and so it comes, I wouldn't say easily because each battle's different, each world is different as well. So with Demon's Reign, I had to kind of scrap a lot of the rules and make some up as well because it's a vertical war. Literally fought like over kind of a vertical mile, things climbing, the trees also moving for some of the battles, and so the actual battlefield moves, so it completely kind of like reinvents it, so you have to almost like think back or like plan sort of a running battle kind of things, like how can people fall behind, how do they use this as defense, their walls are literally moving. So that was kind of difficult, but with past ones I will normally kind of look at my research that I've done, my own knowledge, and then trying to think outside the box as to how the characters interact with how the battle is going. It's not just, I don't want to just put like, then this regiment moved here and they did that and then came a pincer movement and then these people died.
Every technical terms, like
that's it. It's going to be a struggle on a personal and characteristic level, through a landscape that just happens to have a war going on or a battle going on in it, essentially.
And one thing I think is the kind of the best thing and worst thing about planning out like a kind of an expansive story is that like you picture these scenes in your head that you won't get to write for like 2 years. Like do you ever get that? Like I have these scenes mapped out and all this, and I won't get to them for at least another 2 or 3 years, and it's really annoying me because I'm like, oh, that seems like it could be cool.
It's gonna be so good.
It's just like I can't wait. It's like sometimes like when you're at the like one thing I think the worst thing you can get into is like trying to rush to the fun parts, that kind of thing, like because like all the stuff before it is so important. Like, it's like I love doing a battle, but whatever, like that's the reward. I always say like the battle scene's the reward at the end, but if you don't do the proper world building or the character building, those big moments in the battle, they won't really resonate. And if there's big deaths, like I have a note up my whiteboard here, it's just like kill someone of no pussy, and like what I mean, like so like because like I finished off a draft and I was like, oh, I kind of like when you feel like you've copped out, that kind of thing, like. And that's the thing about like world building and battles and stuff like that, that like they give you the opportunity not just to kill people, but if you do the world building beforehand, the deaths should be meaningful, that kind of way. And that's
you've earned it. You've earned it. Like don't get me wrong, I love the big intros, like Saving Private Ryan being the best intro of all time, and it's great. But at the same time, then you have to storytell and you have to earn some of the larger moments. You have to earn them, and I think when Vinny was having he's got to the battle scene, I remember him saying like he's worked and worked and worked. Now it is time for it, as opposed to like, and now battle, because that's not storytelling. Storytelling, like comedy, like anything, it's supposed to be something that a specialist can do, that not anyone can do. Because I could just say, and oh, this guy has like 98 tanks, 99 tanks. Like I'm better at writing than Ben Galley. I don't know where he gets off. So I do think that there's. I remember I laid it to make it about me because the jam. But I remember writing the baseline and I was really proud of it. Ares Redemption, the Stars of Clans there, I can self-promote too. And he said, that's really, real nice. I only want to put it in the last 20 seconds. Can you do like a really simple one before that? And I was kind of like, he's like, man, like it'll work. If you do it every single time, then it's just not going to have the impact. And I always thought that was something that's just so true in so many areas where you kind of go like, that's nice, but if you crescendo to it, and then it has impact. But if you just stay in that level, so even when I think you're writing, like I imagine an epic is that you can't just like say like, oh, and then there's a battle and 1,000 people are killed, and then I move into a battle where 2,000 people are killed, but then I move into a battle where 10,000 people are killed. That's not storytelling.
It's escalation.
It's just escalation. So I think when you finally do arrive at that big time, it must be very exciting. That you've done the work, the research, that you've laid the groundwork, you've spitballed it, you've gone back and done your rewrites. So I don't know. It must feel like when you finally get to up the cork on the champagne, you're like, yes, I know I've done it. I'm here, and I did not skip any of the steps. Is that what it must feel like to you 100%. Guys, or am I talking about?
No, at all. Yeah, no, it is. It's because yeah, because of the plan for me, I find that I know what's coming, and like sometimes I'll kind of surprise myself. Those things in the Forever King and Heavy Lies the Crown that I didn't expect until I got to the end, where I suddenly thought, oh, this could actually be great if I do it this way. But aside from that, yeah, when you get to that point, and it's just so exciting. I find my writing speed, finishes out. I can finish your books faster than I can start one, even though I'm writing in the same sort of level, or same sort of schedule, I should say. And yeah, it is so good because you've imagined all these bits coming to it, and with the end of Demon's Reign, I won't say it, but something happens and I'm like, oh my god, it's finally happening. I'm just like rushing through it to the point where I have to come back and flesh it out afterwards, because I just wanted to like kind of skip over myself. But yeah, it is fun. It's almost like so like, when you show like someone a film and you're like, what's coming, and they're like kind of loving this film that they've never seen before, and like, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna die? Is this person okay? And you're just like, and they're there, and you can see the tears rolling down the face, or they're punching the air, or whatever they're watching, and you're just like, yes, I recommend it. A sick film. It's almost like that. But
yeah, man, like when I was wrapping up the last draft I did of River Bones last year, the last chapter, when I got to it, because I knew it was coming, I knew exactly what it was about, I knew exactly what way it unfolded, and I had the outline done for like months in advance. By the time I got to it, it just kind of wrote itself, that kind of thing where you get to and you're not even thinking, like you're just sitting there, and it's like it's like you're reciting a story instead of writing a story. That kind of thing where it's like someone already told you the story, and you're literally just sitting there, and you're just writing the words, and you're not even thinking about it because you've planned it so much. Like that's what I love about outlines, and like, and just planning and fleshing things out in advance, where you get to the stage where it's like the story is almost telling you how it should be written, and all you're doing is just being at the laptop, and you're just like the flow state you spoke about earlier, where you're just trying to keep up with your hands, or you're trying to keep up with your thoughts. And I absolutely love that, and that's the reward. I think, like, I've completed 2 books, like really fleshed out books at the moment, if you know what I mean, and that's the reward I got when I got to write those really meaty scenes at the end. And it's all that planning, all that preparation you did in the months beforehand, and it just kind of just pours out of you in a way that's inexplicable, because like, I'm not at this long, you're at this much longer than me, like, and like this kind of process much better than I do. But like, sometimes it's just so odd when you read back, you're just like, what frame of mind was I in when I wrote that? Like, that kind of thing, like, and you just can't even almost remember what you did when you did it, and why you did it, and the way you did it,
where you were, I suppose.
It's so weird. And it's just like, and that's what I always say, the scene and the book, the story, they will tell you where it's going to go, how long it needs to be, what way it needs to conclude, and how the characters need to develop if you want to expand your world, or if you want to wrap it up in a specific way that has to be standalone. And like, I just think that's the magic I found about writing so far, that like, it's inexplicable at times how the story just wants to get out of you in a way that like you yourself like have almost no control over. It's just crazy. Like, how about you, Ben? Like, you've doing this so long, and you're so good at it. Like, what's it like for you when you get into that kind of flow state where it's just the story's just fucking pouring out of you? Like,
yeah, I mean, that is it. I mean, that is I think the best part about writing.
It's the joke, isn't it?
Just being a little conduit. Yeah, it is like really, it doesn't happen every day, or not every week sometimes, but when you get to that point and everything's just coming into play at the same time, it's the same feeling I used to get playing in a band and everyone being in sync at the same time, and then the crowd is going mental or whatever, and it's just like, it's so pleasing, because there's
a moment where it's all just seems to be happening, and 100%. You can actually enjoy it, and that's wonderful.
And some euphoria creeps in there as well.
Oh, like, hugely, of course. And why wouldn't it? Because you didn't just fall into it, you worked to get here.
Exactly. Yeah, well, it's just amazing. Yeah, I get the same feeling sometimes. Like, I do love when I ever get the chance to like surf or snowboard, and there's moments where you just get like sounds like, I don't know, really kind of like sad sometimes. You're like, yeah, bro, I caught the best wave.
Yeah,
it's just like, bro.
No,
yeah.
Bra Galley.
Kind of moment. That's me.
Bra Galley. Yeah, Bra Galley. Yeah. Can I ask something? Sorry to interject.
No, go for it.
But even kind of sorry when you were touching upon it, and Vinny was talking about, to paraphrase, just how the story just at a certain point comes out. And I always think of like characters that I really love. I Ty Burrell in Modern Family. I think it's such a wonderful character.
Phil Dunphy.
Phil Dunphy, yeah, and I think Cartman in South Park. I mean, again, I think any genre, but I always thought like they were great. They're great when they're introduced, and sometimes they take on such a life of their own that I could be like in my day-to-day life, I'd hear something and think that is exactly something that Randy Marsh would have said, that Phil Dunphy would have said. And eventually when they get to a point where, especially the writer, somebody with enough talent to bring him into existence, where you've breathed so much life into them that it's like a good friend that you know, and you think like, oh, if he was here now, he'd probably say something about this, or if he was doing this, he'd probably overreact because that's just typical him. And you bred so much life into them that they do take on forms of their own. And you can think of something that Joey would have said in Friends, and something that Phoebe would have said in Friends, and something Chandler would have said in Friends. So you've given them so much. Is there something? Do you take a lot of pride in that when something comes to life so much that it almost feels it's slightly external of you, that you could just picture them? Like I could say, what would this character from your Avatar book react if I put him in X scenario, and instantly it starts coming to mind because you've breathed so much life into him. Like, is that something when it gets to that critical mass, I'm going to call it, is that just something that's very, very exciting? Because I know battle scenes are exciting, but that must be very exciting when something exists in such a three-dimensional way.
Yeah, I think the best part for me is kind of an extension of that, whereby you've created maybe a couple of characters. And I had this with Heavy Lies the Crown, and it was quite a fast book to write because it was the characters were established. It's the second book in the series. The plot, the problem, the peril, they're all very well established. And so I just had these characters, walking along a road essentially, and they're having, I wouldn't say the most hilarious, but a pretty fucking funny conversation. And I'm like cracking up as I'm writing it, because part of the time it's not me that's actually thinking up these words. I haven't planned out, the wit and the banter along the way. I plan out, kind of paragraph level, and it's very kind of a very small granularity. But yeah, it's just, these characters, 3 or 4 characters interacting, giving each other shit and throwing shade around. And it's just funny as fuck. It's the only way I can put it. It's just super entertaining for me, because I feel like it's like introducing 2 friends and seeing them that haven't met each other and seeing them get along so well, or even just seeing the drama of, someone, that's not going to get along. And you're like, oh, this is going to be fun. Awkward scenes are sometimes as fun as, comedic scenes. So yeah, with that, it's just fun to see that kind of interaction and just watch it all, over it all like an overlord, and just be there to kind of transcribe it essentially, and be, one of those court stenographers, for a dialogue that you're necessarily not a part of, but you've set up. And that's I think where I have my most fun, as well as obviously, aside from the flow state, the battle scenes, and building the world of research. I mean, there's so much fun to be had writing a book. But yeah, when your characters take on a true life of their own, whether by your design or their own, you just sit by and watch.
It's both though, isn't it? It's by your design and their own.
Yeah.
Kind of why I worded it as bred life into them. There just seems to be a point where they can just almost exist without you in your head. And that's incredible. It's an incredible thing to be able to do. It is
weird. Yeah, people do kind of really connect with like certain characters as well. Farden, for example, is just like a reader favorite amongst the people that read like kind of my books and multiple series, because he's just a bastard, but he's fun and entertaining, and he's dark and he's witty, and he's obviously very powerful and skilled at what he does, and like, woe betide anyone who tries to mess with him. But yeah, he took on a life of itself, and yeah, he's kind of like my main character that a lot of my other characters have kind of spun off and been almost like isolations of Farden's character in their own rights. But yeah, it's kind of fun. Like a big old family now.
Yeah, like that's the best thing though, like when you do character development, that like they do, like all their personalities become very individualistic, like, and even sometimes when you go back and you do rewrites and you'll see lines of dialogue and like, no, he wouldn't say that, he would say that, like, that kind of thing, like, and or sometimes you come up with plot points, and then eventually as the story unfolds, the character will nearly almost assign himself or herself to that specific key plot device or something, and you wouldn't have been something you planned. It's just the way they developed as a character, and you're like, oh, I can actually use that character in this way. You know, it's just something that happened to me recently, like where it's something that was kind of, I was bogged down. Do you ever like get this little thing, you know how it's supposed to happen, but you don't know the exact way it's meant to be or something?
No,
you know?
that hasn't to Ben. Ben's talented.
No, that happens.
It's the worst. Like, it's like, you know exactly what A and C is, but you just can't figure out B, you know, that kind of way. And that happened to me the other day. And then this character that kind of seemed to have slightly grown important throughout the book and kept surviving these instances. And then eventually I was like, oh, I can use that character for that. And then I was like, fuck, savage. You know what I mean? I was like, awesome. Finally, that answers the question. And that's the thing with character development, that sometimes they themselves, whatever way the story develops, they can actually answer questions that you've been posing yourself for months, and you never even anticipated until the moment comes where you're like, oh, I can actually use that character in that way because they've kind of come alive in a specific way that you never intended in the first place, or, you know.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, when that literally happened at the end of Forever King, and I can't talk about that because that is a big old spoiler. But
yeah, your hands are tied, obviously, in a lot of your writings. But me and my brother have said we're going to read a book together, because the last book I read with him was one by Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I know. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't know. I didn't know back then. But we said we're going to read a book together. So can you just, for me, one more time, what was the book you told me that is the book that would be good to introduce?
Yeah, I would say Chasing Graves. Chasing Graves trilogy. Yeah, so it's, you got Chasing Graves as book 1, Grim Solace is book 2, and then book 3 is Breaking Chaos.
So look out for my solo
dark fantasy.
Look out for my solo series, Why Ben Galley is a Hack. No, I read this book. No.
It was awful.
So Ben, before we let you get the fuck out of here, do you want to tell the folks where they can find you and what you've got coming up and when it's coming up?
100%. Yeah. So you can find me online pretty much most places. I'm either at bengalley.com, BENGALLEY, or at linktree/Ben Galley. Has all my different links to my books, site, social media. Demons Reign should be coming out this summer. I've just launched a brand new Emaneska series box set with a brand new cover art with Wraithmarked. They're a fantastic publisher. And yeah, that's live on Amazon. So that's my most recent release. It's like a week out. Yeah. Almost a week. And yeah, other than that, lots more books on the horizon, plenty more to read already.
And you're on Audible as well, aren't you?
I am, yes. I've got Chasing Graves, Scouts and Chronicles, and The Heart of Stone, one of my grimdark standalones. Those are all on Audible, if you like audiobooks. And then Emaneska should be coming out in audiobook this year as well.
Man, awesome. Thanks for coming along, and fucking hell, you're so busy. Like, do you have like anything, and I'm going to actually disclose, but do you have anything that you've planned out? Like, how many books do you have on the horizon, do you think? Like,
the last time I checked my ideas book, which is on the other desk, I was up to somewhere around 140, 150 ideas, which could either at least be 150 short stories, or novellas or novels. So yeah, I'm just going to be writing constantly. I don't think. I'll stop.
Do you want to start a podcast? I'm thinking of upgrading.
Fuck you, Noel. All right,
Ben. Thanks so much for being with us, man.
Thank you, guys.
That was awesome. Could let you out here.
It's been fantastic.
All right, folks. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel John Toohey.
And that was MDK Presents Ben Galley. See you next time, folks. Peace.
Peaches.